Hello friends, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Kaylee, and today we are back on my island Rubble for another speed build video. If you're new to the channel or this island series, Rubble is my post-apocalyptic city island, and we've done a few builds on this island already, so make sure to check those videos out as well. But today we're building an abandoned train and railroad transition area, and I love how this build turned out, so let's get right into the video. Alright, we're going to start out this build by laying down the custom codes for our train tracks, and I do have these codes and some of the other ones I used on the island listed in the description box below. But we are going to actually use 2 lanes of tracks for this build, and I am going to throw in a concrete block code between the lanes as well. This way, later on in the build, the castle gates will line up correctly, and I just think it looks better when they're slightly separated with the code in between. I ran around a bit to try to figure out the general flow of this area, so I can lay down the codes for where the intersection of the walkway and the train tracks will fit. Now I'm just laying down some of our light gray road code to connect the area from our last build over to where I just laid down the railroad intersection. Once our path is laid out, I'm adding in some of our nature items. I'm starting with the smaller trees close to the road, and then I'll be adding some of our taller trees on the outer area of this build. Kind of like creating a gradient or like a curve of the tree heights. Now I'm adding in a small building to the left of this pathway. It's going to be a simple small building made up of just 3 storefronts and some fencing. In my mind, this is like the building that a train conductor or a train operator would work or live from. I don't know if that's a real thing, but I thought it was a cute idea. I'm also adding in a second building. This one is going to be a bit bigger and will be primarily made of retro transportation stops. If you watched my last speed build video, we made an overlook that was inspired by this picture. So this building will be a continuation on that inspiration and will be the main building that creates the alleyway between the house and the train tracks. For this building, I did decide to use a mix of the 3 different color variants of the retro transportation stops, and I think this just adds to the trash core aesthetic. Like in an apocalypse, you're just using the resources that you have, so a mixed metal building kind of fits that idea. But to make this building, I started with a 3x4 block of terraforming that I covered with a concrete custom code. And then for the top of the building, I added 4 retro transportation stops facing each other. I also ended up adding 2 of the fence items in a minute, but I do end up changing that later on in the video. And then for the bottom of the building, I just lined the front and the sides with the backwards facing retro transportation stops. I kind of bounce around in this build, but now I'm just adding in some items between the trees along the path to detail up this area. And now that we actually have an alleyway, I'm adding in some trash items to clutter up the area and to make it feel more closed in and run down. As always, I'm layering different items of varying heights and making sure to place some of the items on the half tiles to make the clusters of items look more natural and visually interesting. And some of these items will be seen from our overlook building, so I'm trying to make some cool silhouettes by stacking and layering different items. Once I had the items placed in a pattern I liked, I then decided to add this dirt coat underneath just to fill up the area a little bit more. I also decided to use the lunar rover item, which I feel like I never really see used on islands a whole lot, but I felt like it kind of looked like a car that was put together using spare parts, and it layered pretty well in this spot, so I threw it in. And then I realized I had never actually put up the wall on the left side of this build, so I added all of my castle items. For where the train tracks meet the wall, I added the 2 castle gate items so it looks like the tracks go through the wall, and then for the remaining sides, I just lined them with the castle wall item. And then I was running through the build to think of where I wanted this area to lead to, and I decided on making a path up and to the left, and then adding a staircase to get on top of the wall that the train goes through. That build won't be in this video, but I just wanted to share my thought process of why I'm adding this staircase here. Now it's time to add the actual train portion of this build, and again I'm using an amazing code made by Tortugaga_Chronicles from Instagram, and I'll have her Instagram linked in the description box as well as the MA for this design. But this is her graffiti style train Standee code that she created, and honestly I've been just trying to find a reason to use this code because I love it so much. To make this train, I'm using 10 of the face cutout standees, and then I'm using 5 stalls with the white shutter code design as the roof of the train. And then since the standees have the holes in the middle, I'm using 10 black wooden boxes and placing those on the stalls to fill the holes of the standees, and then the train will look like it just has black windows. Now I'm going through and adding some barbed wire fencing along the sides of the train tracks. I do like to add codes underneath some of the fencing, just so the ground doesn't look so bare. And I did forget earlier, but for the train I'm adding an ABD to look like the front of the train. And then I'm going in with some slightly larger trees to densen up this area between the building and the train tracks. I don't want someone visiting the island to be able to see the end of the train tracks. I want it to look like it goes on for a bit more, so I'm adding in these fence items along the side of the tracks. And then in a minute I'll be adding some items on top of the tracks to block this area so you can't walk past it and see the end of the tracks. And here I am adding in that iron frame, and I'm going to position it slightly behind the tree so it doesn't stick out too much. I really just want it here to keep the illusion that the train tracks keep going on for longer. I'm now moving my attention over to the top left of this build. For now, I'm adding in some custom codes and some fencing, but we will come back to this section a little later on to add some more details once the incline is built. Like I mentioned earlier, I did slightly change the front of this building, so instead of having 2 of the fence items, I'm changing it out for a utility pole and only 1 of the fence items, and I'm moving that to the middle of the build. Once I was happy with how this building was looking, I decided to densen up the area between the 2 fake buildings, and this spot won't really be seen, so I'm just adding in some trees, shrubs, weeds, and custom codes. Moving back over to the area behind our new fake building, I'm adding in some trees and shrubs, but I'm also going to make a larger cluster of cardboard and stacked items. Again, this whole area won't really be seen a whole lot, but I wanted it to be a little bit more interesting than just a bunch of trees and shrubs. Now to finish this area, I'm going in and adding my larger trees, and then I'll sprinkle in some custom codes and smaller detail items. Then I'm moving over to the area between Kyle's house and the smaller storefront building, and basically just filling in this area with trees and shrubs. I also thought the castle wall item looked a little weird just coming to a random end, so I added in a castle tower, but there was a little gap between the two, so I added a fully grown cedar tree to try to cover that section up. And again, I didn't want this area to look too boring with just trees, so I did go in with some cardboard boxes and a stack of tires. And now moving on to our last section of this build, I'm going back to the top left section where we had added some barbed wire fencing, and I'm actually decorating and detailing up this area now. This is such a small little corner of this build, but I honestly think it's my favorite part. It's only a few items, but I do love how it turns out. Also, I'm using the Wheatfield item in this area, and I swear I can never make this item look good like some people do, but in this section I actually think it works pretty well. After I had the items laid out in a way I liked, I went back through and added some custom codes underneath as a finishing touch. And here's the finished product. But that's the end of the video. Thanks so much for watching. Before you leave, make sure to give the video a like, comment, and to subscribe to the channel. If you watched to the end, let me know what your favorite Animal Crossing island theme is. Bye, friends!